Bob, a man in recovery. Of course, I don't have this anything memorized, but then I never do because I never say what I think of before. So this is just as good as if you told me a week ago. Uh, I was raised by my mom, my father. I was still in diapers when he moved out. And she never even went out with another guy. I mean, had a date the rest of her life, which now I look back on and think it's crazy, but back then I was just the way it was. I remember one of my friend's fathers asked me, why does your father not live with you? And I just looked at him. I was about 5 or 6 at the time. I looked at myself, I don't know. I don't know if that had anything to do with how I turned out in life or not. It doesn't matter. I was sexually abused as a young child and as a teenager also. I went to, they sent me to a county therapist, and next thing you know, he's got his hands inside my pants, and needless to say, I never went back. I graduated high school, but I'm not sure how. After that therapist incident and all, I refused. I wasn't going to school and I wasn't going to therapy. Next thing you know, teachers were coming to my house, and I graduated somehow. Wasn't for a lack of intelligence, it was from lack of effort on my part. I just did not work at it. I was good at taking tests, and I got by on that because I didn't hand in hardly any homework. I got my first meeting with law enforcement while I was still in high school. I went to a party, I got drunk, and I fell asleep on somebody's lawn. I mean, it wasn't very spectacular or anything. It was just kind of pathetic. I went in the Army, and luckily I ended up out in Germany, not in Nam, and did a lot of drinking there. But when I got out, I started going to school during the day and worked a full-time job at night. I didn't have time to drink. I didn't even think about drinking. I remember going over to my mom's house and cutting her lawn, buying a 6-pack, and week, 10 days later, whenever the lawn needed doing again, there was 4 left, and the following couple of weeks, there was 2 left. In my late 20s, I met a lady. Boy, a lot of my stories start with that. I met a lady, but we'll keep that quiet, or the details we won't go into. But I got introduced to marijuana and a lot of other drugs, and I took to it like a duck to water. I wanted to be part of it, and I wanted to be the best. And I still didn't drink that much. I don't, I didn't have to. I was getting the same effect without putting alcohol in me. And I got into intravenous crystal meth, coke, what have you. And I was quickly on my way out of life. I mean, I knew I was going to die if I kept going the way I was going. So I stopped, but what I did is I didn't just stop everything. All right, I'm not gonna use a needle anymore. I'm not gonna do meth anymore. I'm not gonna do coke anymore. You know, eventually got down to like, all right, I won't even do Quaaludes. I used to love those. Uh, and I just never thought about alcohol. And I mean, I noticed I was drinking more, but yeah, wasn't like a big deal. I just didn't think that I was transferring my addictions, and started drinking pretty heavy. I have a couple of memories I share because I don't want to forget those memories. One was I was joined a motorcycle club, and I mean, it wasn't a gang, it was a regular club. They, and a very fancy one. They had their own building, their own land, a couple acres, and what have you. And all kinds of fancy titles, rear road captain, front road captain, president, all this. And I got the job I wanted. I was Bob the bartender, uh, which meant I could sneak drinks during meetings because you could drink during the meeting, but I couldn't serve any. So I just put a glass under the bar and pour myself another shot and have a go at it. But I remember coming home one night, very drunk, on the motorcycle, and I came up over an overpass over the freeway, and there was a DUI checkpoint at the bottom. I knew better than to turn around. You can't turn around and run. They always have a cop car on the other side waiting for that. And I just said, oh shit. And they were checking every car, not every third car or anything. They were shining the flashlights in their eyes and the whole bit. And I'm going like, all they got to do is ask me my name or something. Then once I open my mouth, they're going to know how drunk I am. I could barely talk. And just as I got down to the cop, he looked up and he waved me through. Checked every car up to then. So one of my better insanity moments, I says, I'm going to drive the motorcycle every time I drink. And I did. It wasn't just I said it. It was months before finally there was a storm and I took the car. But I don't want to forget that. I wasn't worried about running into a telephone pole and dying or a bridge abutment or whatever other things could happen being drunk on a motorcycle. I was worried about getting caught. That was my number one concern at the time. And another of the memories that I keep reminding myself about is woke up one Monday morning. My ex and I had split up for a short time. And I had a regular procedure. I drank the whole pot of Mr. Coffee, all 12 cups of it. I handful of aspirin, Tylenol, whatever the hell was in the medicine cabinet, and get under the shower. And I remember when I lifted my arm up, I had a bruise the size of a football back here on my back. And I said, oh boy, this must have been quite a weekend. Of course, I didn't remember why the bruise was there. To this day, I don't know why it was there. But I felt like shit, really bad. And I went to work. At the time, I was a carpenter foreman at Rutgers University. I had about 12 people, 13 people working for me. And I gave them all their jobs, got them out, and I went and sat in the office and said, all right, I'll be a little better. Slowly I'll get better from this hangover. Well, instead of getting better, I was getting worse. And I finally called the front office and told them I was going home sick. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. It took me to about 1 o'clock in that day to realize I was running a fever. I had the flu. But feeling that bad, it didn't dawn on me that I was sick. This was just another Monday morning hangover. I want to remember that that's how I was living. And if anybody else gets something out of it, wonderful. But those two stories are for me. I tell them every time because they could be repeated. I won't even go there with the thinking. I didn't get married until I was about 40. But when I met that woman, it was a double date. And the other lady went in to get her, and the guy driving the car rolled a joint, and we started smoking it. She came in, grabbed it out of my mouth, and I'm going like, all right, that's good. We went out, we went to a club and danced and drank the rest of the night. And of course, went home together, and I was in love. I found the perfect woman, or that's what I thought. And we took off on several years adventure. We did activities. She went to one counselor who told her, you didn't have a marriage, you had a whole list of activities. Every weekend we did something, went skiing, went canoeing, bicycle riding, you name it. We camping, motorcycling. And then she had a motorcycle accident, broke her back. So that put a big strain on her, because now we went from all the activities to nothing. It was a long time before she could even go out and dance. And all we had was getting drunk and doing things. And I didn't have a clue of what to do in that situation. I mean, I kept going to work and taking care of her as much as I could. And we drifted farther and farther apart. And I had just kept drinking more and more. She came in one night and she had her hands on her hips like that, and she announced she was going to Al-Anon. What a traitor, man. How could you do that to me? Or that was my thinking at the time. And she'd go out, I'm going to, she was going out to her meetings, and then she came home a couple months later. I'm very foggy on time during that period. And she says, I'm going to AA meetings. I think I'm an alcoholic. And I didn't know what to do with that one. She was a periodic. She could go long periods of time without drinking, but when she drank, she got drunk. And I was an everyday drinker. And I, of course, didn't trust her. She was trying to get, that's how to get you, to get you to go to one meeting. And then next thing you know, my friends had warned me about that. Next thing you know, you're not addicted to the alcohol, you're addicted to the damn meetings. That did happen to me, believe it or not. But anyway, finally, one Saturday morning, she says, you want to go to a meeting with me? I said, okay. And I went. It was a big book meeting. It was a fairly large meeting. And they asked for newcomers. It was funny. There was 3 of us sitting in this one bench in the back, and we're all newcomers. And the guy next to me put his hand up, whatever his name was. He's new. And I put my hand up, Bob, alcoholic. It was nothing traumatic. I knew I was an alcoholic. I knew I couldn't stop on my own. I knew what the first drink did to me. I didn't have to come to AA for those lessons. I knew what the first drink did to me. I'm the only one in my family that really drinks. And go to my brother's, pick my mother up, take her over to my brother's and his wife and family. And they put one little skinny bottle of wine on the table. I mean, for everybody. And I'd look at that bottle of wine and say, I can't touch it. I know I can't touch it. So I said, lie to him. I don't drink. But I always managed to get headaches and stuff about 3 p.m. because I had to get my drink. And I did. I mean, I'd take mom and drop her at her house, go around the corner and just stop, reach under the front seat and just glug, glug, glug. At the end of my drinking, it was nothing pretty at all. I was drinking rum straight out of the bottle. Once in a while, I got high class. I'd remove the paper bag. But most of the time, I just left it in the paper bag and drank straight out of the bottle. And it was getting worse and worse and worse. I switched to the rum from vodka because rum would go down faster. I'd take a big gulp of vodka and it would gag my throat, and I could take a big gulp, same size gulp, and not with rum. And that was my whole decision on drinking rum. I knew my life was falling apart completely. And I started going to meetings on my own after that first one with her. The first meeting I went to was the worst meeting I've been to in all the time I've been sober. A bunch of teenagers. And they were worried because daddy wouldn't let them go to the concert. They've been sober for 2 years. I'm sitting there, I'm shaking like a leaf. And the other one, there was a young girl that somebody at school who passed the rumor that she was a lesbian. Her life was over too. And again, I'm still sitting there shaking. And I went home and my ex said, how'd you like it? I said, it was horrible. I'm not going to that shit. And so the next night I stayed home. That was a Wednesday night. Tuesday was that first meeting that I went to voluntarily, completely on my own. And Thursday night, my ex was going out with her sponsor and some women. They had a speaking commitment. And when my ex got in the car, the sponsor says, because she'd been knowing what was going on, she says, where's Bob? He's in there. We'll go get him. We don't have room in his car, but tell him to follow us. So I followed him to the meeting. And I was told where there was some decent meetings and stuff. And I made that connection that following night. But at first, I didn't have anybody's number. I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't go to meetings every day. I went when I felt like it. And lo and behold, I kept getting drunk. And I woke up one morning feeling worse than I ever felt my whole life. Up here, on the inside. The hangover wasn't that big a hangover or anything else. It was just here I couldn't stop and all these people could. And I was thinking about it through the day. And I finally said to myself, well, maybe I should be doing what these people are suggesting. And that night I went and I got a sponsor, a home group. I started going every day. I jumped in with both feet. They said, get a home group. Well, there were no clubs or anything around the area I got sober in. And most groups had one meeting a week. So I joined 7 home groups. I said, have a home group. I was a little OCD, what have you, about everything in my life. And that AA was part of it. Like I said, I hated school with a passion when I was a kid. And somehow as an adult, I started enjoying it. But I was going for courses I wanted to take, not some list that, well, you're going to be such as, such and such, and these are the courses you have to take. So I was working construction at the time, so I took a lot of courses in that area: construction management, this, that, the other, building inspectors. But I was having problems balancing the drinking and going to school. So I came up with a solution. I took easier courses. I'm going to stop drinking. And the community college I was going to was like 35 miles from my house. I'd already been in trouble, one DUI. I wasn't going to get another one. So if I started drinking, I didn't go. Well, I failed those courses that year, both of them, just from lack of attendance. And then I didn't bother signing up the following year, or the following years when I finally got sober. When all of that was over and I started getting sober, I again it was when the ADA first came out. I took this course on the ADA, what the rules were and what all the whys and wheres stuff for it. But it was easy as far as tests and all that. You just really basically had to show up. And then I started getting back into the regular courses that I have. And one day I said, shit, I could teach this stuff. So I went and got myself certified as a train-the-trainer program. And I got a job at a community college. Happened to be the same one I was talking about that I couldn't quite make it to. And I walked in there that night and went to the office because I didn't know what my classroom was or anything. So I went to the night office, and this nice lady says, well, I'll show you where your classroom was. Classroom was one of the ones that I flunked out of. And now I was getting choked up over this stuff. But now, I was teaching in that same classroom. And I couldn't even say anything to the lady. I just kind of nodded my head and walked in because I was overwhelmed. I ended up, I don't remember for 6, 7 semesters, different community colleges in the area that I taught at. Plus I had my full-time job in the day. But I finally, they discovered I had hepatitis C from my wreckage of my past. And I went on treatment for it, the interferon ribavirin treatment, and that's no picnic. But I was determined I was gonna teach the rest of the semester and do my regular job. And somehow I did. One night, I middle of the class, I finally says, this is over. I got to go home. I can't, because I was feeling that bad. So I spent 2 years doing that. First the regular, 8 months of the regular interferon, then the pegulated. Did that for 16 months straight. And didn't work. I finally, a couple of years ago, this new stuff they have, got it. I took that and supposedly I'm clean now. I moved down to Florida. I'll skip the in-between marriage. It didn't matter. We just fell in lust with each other. That's all it was. But in the meantime, we moved to Florida. And my brother called me one day, and Mom was in a senior citizen apartment in New Jersey, and says she can't stay by herself. I'm going to put her in a nursing home. I says, she can come live with me. I was sober already at this time. That wouldn't have happened when I was drinking. And so for the next 3 years or so, I took care of mom. She was 99 years old when she came to live with me. And she broke her hip. Finally, the hip broke. Either she fell and broke it, or it broke and she fell, whichever, I don't know. But they repaired the hip. They operated on her, and that was fine. But she lost her ability to balance herself. So she had to stay in a nursing home. And I went there every night. A lot of nights I didn't want to. Hell, I didn't want to wipe her butt when I had to either, but I did. But I did fairly well in my job. I got a lot of promotions and stuff before I left that job. But I'm more proud of being able to take care of her at the end of my life, or her life. Hopefully mine isn't over yet. Finally she died, and the program came in very well there. I'd called from the nursing home. I'd call my brother. He was down in his new apartment condo down in Naples, Florida. So I got a hold of my sister-in-law, gave her the news. He called that night. He says, we'll be down sometime next month. And Kathy, I just saw your mouth. That was my mouth. What? She was cremated. There was no rush to put her in the ground. But my first thought was to spew out a whole bunch of inappropriate words, tell him to go fuck himself and things of that type, and that we're going to have it without him. But something made me stop, and I just said, goodbye for tonight. And I started thinking about it. I says, what's the difference? It's only her bones sit in this box, crushed bones. That's what the ashes are. Doesn't matter if it sits on my dining room table for a week or a month. But my first reaction was not the right one. The first thought wrong. I was ready to jump down his throat. And I didn't. And that's got to be from the program, because I had a raging temper ever since I was a small kid. I was the smallest in the family, including all the male cousins. So I got my ass beat on a regular basis. And I got to be very vicious. Whatever I could pick up and swing at somebody, I did. To me, it was just self-protection, but most of my relatives didn't agree with me, especially when I whacked their son over the head with something. So, it made a big difference. Right now, my life is just so good, it's pathetic. I often say, I haven't said it much lately, but I used to say it all the time. If somebody would give me a piece of paper and a pencil, when I first came in, and said, Bob, write down what you envision is your perfect life, I'd have shortchanged myself. Because I came in, I wanted to stop drinking. And there would have been two other things I'm pretty sure on the list. Would have been women and money. And I've gotten so much more than that. I just can't even put into words, how good my life is today. And I met a lady in the program 15, 16 years ago. And I was a typical why guys shouldn't sponsor women. She was still drinking. And I was in deep before I realized it. So I started going to Al-Anon. finally she stopped drinking, and we've been together. December of 2010, she moved in. And we get along. We don't fight. The closest was a weekend or so ago and we were driving where neither one of us knew where we were going, just following GPS and road signs and stuff. And she looked, and she got a little ticked off. She says, "How come you always think I'm wrong?" Which is totally not the truth. She's a very smart woman. And I let that go. I didn't, that night I thought it over and I thought it over. Well, I should straighten that out. She knows what I think of her. She was just in a bad situation that I could recognize today. I'm not saying it didn't hurt at the beginning. At first I wanted to just drive where the hell I tell you to drive or something, but I didn't say that. We have got a wonderful life together. Since March of 2019, when I found Zoom meetings and secular Zoom meetings, I mean, I've been like a pig in the mud. That's not the first word that popped to my mind, but I cleaned it up for you. I really have. I love this. And she still goes to traditional meetings, which is fine. I don't care. I want her to keep going to meetings. I don't want her drunk again, ever. But I don't want Bob drunk either. So I do what I have to stay sober. And I think I've rambled on way too long already, so I'm going to shut up.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you for jumping in and being of service.